Welcome to the Echo in English podcast. Have you ever been in a situation where you need to speak English and suddenly your mind just stops?
Oh, yeah. That is a very, very common feeling for language learners.
Right. Like, imagine you are standing in a busy coffee shop. It's your turn to order, and you know the vocabulary.
You know the grammar perfectly.
Exactly. You know exactly what you want to drink, and the person behind the counter, they look at you and smile.
And they ask what they can get for you today.
Yeah, and then just nothing. You completely freeze up.
The words are in there, somewhere in your brain, but there's this giant wall standing in the way.
You feel warm, you feel nervous, and by the time you finally push the words out, the moment is kind of gone. The conversation just feels so heavy.
It is a shared experience for almost everyone learning a new language. You have all the pieces, but you just can't put them together fast enough.
Especially when someone is literally standing there waiting for you to speak.
Right. So today, our mission for this deep dive into the sources is to basically tear down that wall.
Okay, let's unpack this. We really need to figure out what that wall actually is, right?
Yeah, because we want to show you how to stop translating in your head. We want to help you start thinking directly in English.
Which is the goal, right?
Yeah.
Getting to a place where English feels natural and calm. But why does this wall happen?
Well, most learners spend years studying, they read books, they write essays.
They listen to audio, they practice speaking with teachers. So it's clearly not a lack of knowledge.
Exactly. A learner can look at a piece of paper and perfectly understand a complex sentence.
But trying to speak that same sentence, the wall appears. There is this huge disconnect between knowing it and using it in real time.
What's fascinating here is the missing piece of the practice. The sources point out something very clear about this.
What's that?
Well, learners practice reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But they almost always forget to practice one specific, invisible skill.
The skill of thinking.
Right, the skill of thinking. Because your brain is doing like a massive amount of extra work.
It's taking every single idea, building it in your native language first, and then trying to swap it into English.
Which takes so much energy.
It really does. It makes me think of a lagging video game.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
When you play a game on your phone and the internet connection is bad, you press the button to jump.
But the character doesn't jump.
Right. The character just stands there for 2 seconds and then suddenly jumps. The audio doesn't match the picture.
That is exactly what translating in your head feels like. It's a lagging video game.
Your brain is trying to process way too much information at once, so the output is delayed.
It's a very accurate picture. Let's actually slow down and look at the steps your brain takes when you translate.
Okay, yeah, let's walk through it.
So, someone asks you a simple question in English. First, your brain has to hear the English sounds.
Right, step 1.
Second, your brain must translate those English words into your native language to find the meaning.
That's step 2. Then what?
Third, you form your answer, but, you form it in your native language.
Oh, right, because that's what's comfortable.
Exactly. Then, fourth, you have to search your memory for the English words to match your native words.
And finally, the 5th step, you actually try to speak those English words out loud.
5 whole steps, just to answer a simple question.
Wow, 5 different mental actions. It's really no surprise that conversations feel exhausting.
Your brain only has so much mental space to use at one time.
Yeah, if you use all your energy on those 5 steps, you have nothing left to, pay attention to the other person.
Or to smile,
Yeah.
or just enjoy the interaction. You're too busy running this translation machine in your head.
So the secret to speaking smoothly isn't just memorizing more vocabulary words, is it?
Not at all. The secret is removing those middle steps. You need to hear the English, think of the answer in English, and speak it.
3 steps instead of 5. That sounds much better.
The sources use a very clear idea to explain how to do this. They say the brain works just like a muscle.
Right, like if you go to the gym and lift heavy weights every day, your arms get strong.
The brain follows the exact same rule. The pathways become stronger based on what you practice daily.
So if I practice translating every single time I use English, I'm just getting really good at translating.
Exactly. Your brain becomes a very strong, very fast translator. It learns the habit you teach it.
It thinks, oh, this person always wants to change English into their native language, so I'll build a path for that.
But you don't want to be a translator. A translator's job is to move between 2 languages.
Your goal is to stay inside one language. You want to be fluent.
To do that, you have to build a completely different muscle, the direct thinking muscle.
You know, many learners I talk to have this belief that they need to be perfect before they can think in English.
Oh, that's a very common trap.
They view thinking in English as like the prize at the end of the race. They say, once I learn all the grammar, then I'll think in English.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the brain learns. The sources are very strong on this point.
Thinking in English is not the final result.
No, it's not the prize at the end. Thinking in English is the path itself. It's the vehicle you drive to get to fluency.
So if you wait until you're perfect, you're just going to wait forever.
You have to start right now, today, just using the simple words you already know.
I always think about the brain like a dry sponge, you know?
A dry sponge, I like that.
Yeah, a sponge is meant to soak up water. The more English you hear, the more your brain wants to soak it up.
Right, it naturally wants to absorb.
But translating acts like a plastic bag wrapped around that sponge. The English water hits the plastic, gets filtered, and loses its shape.
And it never really reaches the sponge directly. The plastic filter blocks the true feeling of the language.
Because English has its own flavor and rhythm. When you filter it, you lose all of that.
Exactly. So the real question is, how do we take the plastic bag off? How do we build this new muscle?
It definitely doesn't start by standing in front of a mirror and giving a big speech.
No, not at all. The training starts in a very quiet, private place. It starts with your inner voice.
Your inner voice, that quiet voice inside your head that just talks all day long.
The one that narrates your life, complains when you're tired, worries about the future.
Right now, for our listeners, that voice is probably speaking entirely in their native language.
And that inner voice is the key. The first goal is to slowly train that narrator to switch its language.
And the most basic way to start is just by naming the physical world around you, right?
Yes, just looking at objects in your environment and saying their English names in your mind.
Okay, naming things. So if I'm sitting here right now, let me try. I see a cup, a microphone,
A light, a window.
a chair,
Yeah.
a pen. The goal is to look at the physical pen and let the brain hear the word pen.
Without your native language jumping in first. You want to connect the physical object directly to the English sounds.
So I don't look at the pen, think of my native word, and then translate it.
No, you look at the plastic object that writes, and your brain simply produces the word pen.
But just naming single words feels a bit small, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
what's the next layer? Single words don't make a conversation.
You don't. But single words are the foundation. Once that's solid, you build small, natural sentences about those objects.
Keeping it extremely simple, I imagine.
Very simple.
Mm.
You look at your cup and think, my cup is on the desk. You look at the window and think, the window is large.
The window is large, the light is very bright. I mean, I don't need a high level of English to form those thoughts.
Exactly. You don't need to worry about complex tenses or advanced grammar structures at all.
So the goal isn't complexity, the goal is speed and making that direct connection.
You're teaching your brain to react to reality using English. You want it to bubble up naturally.
And you can take this anywhere, right? You don't have to just sit in your room.
Anywhere at all. If you take a walk outside, the environment gives you endless things to describe.
I look at the street, I see a car. I think the red car is parked.
You look at the sky, you think the clouds are dark today.
But when you first start doing this, your brain is absolutely going to fight you, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It will try to hand you the native word first. It'll say, hey, this is easier, just use this.
Which is completely normal. The brain likes the easy path.
When that happens, just don't feel frustrated. Gently acknowledge it, push the native word to the side, and supply the English word.
Just gently pushing the native word away. It's not a battle, just a redirection.
Exactly. It just takes a little patience.
But naming objects only gets us so far. The sources suggest we need to take the inner voice a step further.
Yes, to really build confidence, we need to start having actual conversations with ourselves.
Like talking to ourselves in English, which I know sounds a bit strange to some people.
It might feel silly at first, but psychologically, it is one of the most powerful tools you have as a learner.
Why is it so powerful? Because I know when I speak to a native speaker, I get really nervous.
Your heart beats faster. You're worried they'll judge your accent.
Yeah, I worry I'll use the wrong word and just look foolish.
And that worry is exactly why talking to yourself works. When you speak to another person, there is social pressure.
Fear creates tension, and tension just freezes the brain.
But when you are alone, talking to yourself in your own mind, there is zero pressure.
No one can hear your thoughts. No one can judge your grammar. No one is laughing at your accent.
You create a completely safe space inside your mind.
A safe space. And because there is no fear, the brain can relax.
A relaxed brain absorbs information much better than a stressed brain. It's the perfect environment to play with the language.
Let's build a real-life scenario for you listening. Let's walk through a typical morning routine.
The morning is the perfect time to start this habit because we generally do the exact same things every single morning.
The repetition is great for the brain. So imagine it's morning, you just opened your eyes, the room is quiet.
What is the first thought you can give to your inner voice?
I can lie there and think, I feel very sleepy today, or I do not want to get out of bed.
Small, simple, true statements. Then you decide to get up. You put your feet on the floor.
And I can think the floor is cold. I walk to the bathroom, look in the mirror. I think I need to brush my teeth.
Exactly. I need to brush my teeth.
I reach for the toothbrush, put the toothpaste on. I'm just describing my own life. Then I walk to the kitchen to make coffee.
Making coffee is a great opportunity because it involves several little steps. Walk me through it in simple English.
Okay, I take the coffee cup from the shelf, I think. Here's my favorite cup. I turn on the machine.
And you think, the machine is loud.
Right. I wait for the coffee. I think, the coffee smells wonderful. I pour the milk and think, I need a little more milk.
Those sentences are incredibly simple. And honestly, some learners might doubt this.
They might wonder if practicing something like, the coffee smells wonderful, can really help them become fluent.
They want to discuss deep topics like politics or science. They think, how does talking about coffee help me?
That is a very valid concern. It does feel almost too basic.
It feels basic, but it builds the foundation of automatic thought. The simple English you use every day is much more valuable than advanced English you rarely use.
Right. Many people memorize long lists of difficult academic words, but then they never use them.
So the brain just forgets them. Or it takes a really long time to pull them out of memory.
Because the brain is efficient. It only keeps the paths clear for information it uses constantly.
If you think the coffee smells wonderful every single morning for a month, your brain no longer has to build that sentence.
It just becomes automatic. It appears instantly. You are teaching your brain the basic rhythm of English structure.
Subject, verb, adjective. Once the brain masters that structure automatically, it's much easier to drop advanced vocabulary into it later.
So the morning routine is just the beginning. The sources encourage us to expand this practice throughout the whole day.
Yes, they call it living small moments in English, taking normal, boring actions and turning them into practice.
Let's expand on that. What about cooking? Cooking takes time and involves a lot of senses.
It's perfect for this. Imagine you are making dinner. You take out an onion and a knife. You can narrate your actions.
I am cutting the onion.
Then maybe your eyes start to water. You think, the onion is strong. My eyes are watering.
You put oil in a warm pan, you add the onions, and hear that sizzle. You think, the oil is hot, the onions are cooking.
You add some salt and pepper.
I am adding salt, I need a little more pepper. I stir the food looks almost ready.
And then we get to the best part of cooking, eating.
Yes, eating.
Eating is an excellent time to practice descriptive English. Often we eat while staring at our phones.
We don't even pay attention to the food.
But if you use this time to practice, you focus on the food, you take a bite, you describe it to your inner voice.
This chicken is very tender. The soup is too salty. This bread is fresh and warm.
You're engaging your senses, taste, smell, touch, sound, connecting all of those experiences directly to English words.
Let's take another part of the day. A lot of people commute to work or take a walk outside.
The world outside is basically a moving canvas of vocabulary. When you step outside, the practice continues.
And you don't need to speak out loud and look strange to the people around you, right? Just use your inner voice.
Exactly. You feel the air. The wind is cold today. You look down the street. The bus is late.
You look at the people walking past. You observe them. That woman is walking quickly. That man is wearing a heavy coat.
Those children are laughing loudly. The dog is pulling on its leash.
The trees are losing their leaves. The traffic is heavy this morning. You're constantly keeping the English language touching your brain.
But I know this brings up a very realistic question from learners.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're going to say. If I try to narrate my entire morning, my cooking, my commute,
Well,
won't my brain feel completely exhausted?
constantly searching for English words to describe every single thing is tiring.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly tiring.
It is tiring. Your brain will definitely feel fatigued at first. The sources are very honest about this initial difficulty.
The fatigue happens because you are forcing your brain out of its comfort zone, right?
Your brain prefers to relax in the soft, familiar chair of your native language. When you force it to stand up and work in English, it burns more mental energy.
It's exactly like going to the gym for the first time in a year. The next day, your muscles are so sore you can barely walk.
The pain makes you want to quit. But the soreness means the muscle is changing.
The fatigue in your brain means the neural pathways are growing.
And if you push through that initial mental tiredness, a wonderful shift happens. The fatigue slowly disappears.
The brain adapts. What was exhausting on day 1 becomes effortless by day 30.
The sentences stop feeling forced. They just pop into your head naturally. You see a dog running and the thought the dog is fast just arrives.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When learners start narrating their day, a big fear usually pops up.
The fear of mistakes.
Exactly. They worry, if I am just talking to myself, making up sentences about onions and cars, what if my grammar is wrong?
What if they are saying the dog are fast instead of the dog is fast?
Right. Since no teacher is correcting me, am I permanently damaging my English?
That fear stops so many people from practicing. But the truth of language acquisition is very different.
Your mistakes will actually reduce naturally over time, even without a teacher correcting your inner voice.
Yes, they will.
How does that work? I mean, how can I fix a mistake if I don't even know it is a mistake?
Because the human brain is a brilliant pattern-matching machine. You aren't only practicing your inner voice.
You're also living in the world, listening to English music, watching videos, reading emails.
Exactly. Your brain takes in all that correct input, and it quietly compares your inner thoughts to the correct English it hears in the real world.
Oh, wow. So it notices the differences and adjusts its own patterns over time.
The brain naturally wants to align with the correct pattern.
So if I say the dog are fast in my head today, but tomorrow I hear a native speaker in a movie say the dog is fast, my brain registers that update.
Yes. The most important thing is the flow. If you stop your inner voice every 5 seconds to worry about grammar rules, you freeze the process.
You just build the wall again. You have to let the thoughts flow, accept that mistakes will happen, and trust your brain to fix it later.
Keeping the flow moving is everything. And to help with that flow, the sources provide another essential tool.
Which focuses on how we actually acquire new vocabulary, right? We have to change our relationship with dictionaries.
This leads us to the concept of using pictures and feelings instead of native translation.
Using pictures over translation. I think this addresses one of the biggest bad habits we learn in traditional schools.
Oh, definitely.
When I was in school, the teacher would give us a piece of paper. Left side, 20 new English words. Right side, the exact translation in my native language.
And you were tested on linking the two words together.
Yeah, that method is fine for passing a test, but it is terrible for fluency.
Because it artificially chains the English word to your native word.
Yeah.
It makes translation a permanent required step.
Every time you want to use the English word, your brain has to search for the native word first to unlock the meaning.
We have to break that chain entirely. Destroy the bridge between the English word and the native word.
And build a new bridge. A bridge that connects the English word directly to an image, a physical action, or a deep feeling.
Let's walk through some concrete examples to show exactly how to do this. Let's start with a physical object, the word apple.
Okay, apple. If I'm learning that word for the first time, I must stop myself from thinking of my native word for that fruit.
Do not let it enter your mind. Instead, close your eyes, form a vivid picture. Imagine a bright, shiny red apple sitting on a wooden table.
I can see it.
Imagine the smooth skin of the fruit, the green leaf attached to the top. Imagine taking a bite and hearing the crisp crunch.
That entire visual and sensory experience is what apple means.
Yes, you link the sound apple directly to that red, shiny image.
That makes perfect sense for physical things. I can picture a mountain, a river, a car, but language is full of abstract concepts.
Things you cannot touch.
Right. How do we apply this picture method to a word like happiness? You can't hold happiness in your hand.
For an abstract concept or an emotion, you must visualize a scene or a human action that clearly represents that emotion.
So for the word happiness, I don't look for the translation. I imagine a memory or a scene.
Picture a child running through a park with a massive smile, laughing loudly. Or the warm feeling of sitting by a fire with your best friends, sharing a joke.
The physical feeling in your chest when you imagine those scenes, that feeling is happiness.
You connect the vocabulary word to a human experience. Let's try another one. The word hungry. How do you picture hunger?
Well, I wouldn't translate it. I'd build a scene. Imagine I've been hiking in the mountains all day. I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten since early morning.
Your stomach is completely empty and it hurts slightly.
I finally walk into a warm restaurant. I see a waiter carry a large plate of hot, delicious food to the table next to me. The smell reaches my nose.
Your mouth waters. You want to eat that food so badly. That intense physical desire you feel in the scene, that is hungry.
That is a very powerful way to learn a word. It gives the word life. Let's try a negative emotion, the word angry.
Picture a situation of conflict. Imagine someone driving a car and another car cuts in front of them dangerously.
I picture the driver hitting the steering wheel, their face turning bright red, their eyes narrowing.
Imagine them shouting loudly with tension in their neck. That hot, tight, explosive image is angry.
What about action words? Verbs like the word run.
Do not translate the verb. Picture the motion. Imagine a person moving very fast down a dirt path.
Arms swinging back and forth, feet hitting the ground, kicking up dust, their chest moving heavily as they breathe.
Connect the sound run directly to that fast-moving internal movie.
So why is the internal movie so much more effective than just memorizing a dictionary translation? Why does the brain prefer the picture?
From a neurological standpoint, the human brain is optimized to process visual information and physical experiences. It processes images significantly faster than abstract text.
Like, if I walk down the street and see a large dog running toward me, I don't need to think the word dog in my native language to understand what's happening.
Your brain processes the visual image instantly, understands the danger or the excitement, and tells your body how to react.
The reaction to the picture is immediate. There is no middle step.
Exactly. When you connect an English word directly to a picture or a feeling, you're utilizing that high-speed visual pathway.
You bypass the slow, text-based translation center. When you need to say you are hungry, you feel the empty stomach, the brain recognizes the feeling and hands you the word hungry.
Okay, but I'm going to jump in here and play devil's advocate.
Oh, please do.
The theory sounds beautiful. Imagining shiny red apples and angry drivers sounds great. But let's be honest about the reality of daily life. People are incredibly busy.
They really are. Working long hours, taking care of kids, paying bills. Who has the time to sit quietly and build an internal movie for every new word?
How do we make this practical for a busy adult?
That is the perfect question. If a method isn't practical, no one will use it. But you don't need to pause your life to do this.
You can integrate it directly into the busy life you already have by altering your physical environment.
Right. Creating small pockets of your daily life where English is the only available option. The sources refer to this as micro-immersion.
Micro-immersion. Changing small parts of your world. Give me a practical example of this.
Let's look at the device you probably use the most, your smartphone. You likely look at that screen dozens, maybe hundreds of times a day.
So change the operating language of your phone entirely to English.
Yes, change the phone language. It's a bold move. It might make people feel a bit panicked at first.
It will definitely feel uncomfortable for the first few days.
But it is an incredibly effective form of micro-immersion. When your phone menus are in English, you can't rely on translation.
You have to navigate by memory, by icon location, and by connecting the English words to the actions you want.
You tap the word settings, not because you translated it, but because you know that specific word leads to the control menu.
You connect the word directly to the function. It forces the brain to adapt to the environment. What is another way to force this adaptation?
Think about your weekly chores. When you go to the supermarket, you usually make a shopping list. From now on, write your shopping list entirely in English.
Do not write your native words. Write milk, bread, apples, chicken.
I see how this connects back to the picture method. When I am walking down the aisle at the supermarket, I look at the piece of paper.
I read the English word milk. I don't translate it.
Right. I look up, scan the shelves, and look for the physical white liquid in the plastic bottle. I'm physically linking the English text to the real-world object in real time.
You turn a boring weekly chore into a highly effective vocabulary lesson. You can also use your phone's note app to send short messages to yourself in English.
Just small reminders. Call the doctor at 3. Buy a gift for Sarah.
Even if it feels strange or grammatically imperfect, you're proving to your brain that English is not just an academic subject to study for a test.
You're proving that English is a functional tool you use to manage your actual life. You make the language useful.
When the brain realizes a language is useful for survival and daily tasks, it stores it much more deeply.
Now, we need to shift our focus slightly. Thinking directly in English isn't just about vocabulary words and avoiding translation.
Our sources introduce a deeper concept. It is about the fundamental style and culture of the language itself.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, every language in the world has its own unique architecture.
Languages don't just have different words for the same thoughts. They organize thoughts in completely different ways.
Different rhythms, different priorities, and different cultural personalities.
And the sources highlight a specific characteristic of the English language. English heavily favors short, direct, and practical sentences.
This can be a huge shock for learners whose native language values complexity. In many cultures, using long, flowing, poetic sentences with many descriptive words is considered polite and beautiful.
You take your time getting to the main point to show respect. But English culture, generally speaking, values efficiency.
It values clarity and speed over poetic complexity. The best analogy for English thinking is sending a text message to a good friend.
Sending a text message. Let's explore that.
When you text a close friend, you don't write a formal 5-paragraph letter. You don't use overly complicated vocabulary.
You want to give them the information as quickly and clearly as possible. I'm running late. See you in 10 minutes.
That is the natural spirit of English expression. Get straight to the point.
The sources provide a brilliant example to show the difference between a native language thought pattern and an English thought pattern. Let's look at how this causes problems.
Please share the example.
Imagine a scenario. You just finished a very difficult day. You worked for 8 hours, you had to fix your car, you went to the crowded grocery store.
And now you are finally sitting on your couch at home.
In your native language, the thought that forms in your head might be beautifully complex. It might translate to something like, I feel profoundly exhausted this evening because I was burdened with a long day full of heavy responsibilities.
That is a very descriptive, elegant sentence, but it is structurally heavy.
Exactly. Now imagine a learner trying to translate that heavy sentence into English in real time during a conversation.
They start speaking, I feel profoundly. Now their brain has to search for the English word for burdened. They freeze.
But they try to find the English word for responsibilities. They hesitate.
The translation wall stops them completely because they're trying to force English to carry the complex weight of their native language.
So how would a native English speaker naturally express that exact same feeling of exhaustion?
An English speaker would just say, I'm so tired, today was a long day.
I'm so tired, today was a long day. That sentence carries the exact same emotional truth. The person is exhausted.
But look at the structure. It is two short, simple ideas placed next to each other. It uses basic vocabulary. It is incredibly direct.
And because it is simple, it is fast.
This is a massive realization. If you are struggling to speak fluently, you might be trying to think in your native language's complex structure and forcing English words into it.
To truly think in English, you must adopt the English habit of shortness and directness. You have to let go of the desire to sound like a poet in your head.
Keep it simple. Be clear. Do not overcomplicate your thoughts.
To help listeners internalize this short, direct rhythm, the sources recommend a specific audio practice. This practice is often referred to as shadowing, or the listen and repeat method.
Shadowing is a fantastic tool to learn the cultural rhythm of a language. It moves the practice from your brain down into your mouth and your vocal cords.
But it requires you to actively surround yourself with the sounds of English. You need to find audio sources, YouTube videos, simple podcasts, short interviews, or light television shows.
The goal is not just to understand the words, but to deeply study how those words sound when they are connected together in real life.
Let's explain exactly how to do this exercise. If I pull up a short interview on YouTube, what are my instructions? Do I just sit back with a cup of tea and let the video play for 10 minutes?
No, this is highly active practice. You are going to work with very small pieces of audio. You listen closely to the speaker. The moment they finish one single sentence, you press pause.
For example, if the person on the screen says, I really don't know what happened there, you pause the video immediately after the word there.
Pause immediately.
Then you repeat the sentence out loud. But here is the critical part. You do not just read the words in a flat, robotic voice. You must become an actor.
You try to mimic the speaker with absolute perfection. You copy their pronunciation. You copy the speed. If they swallow a sound or link two words together, you do it too.
Most importantly, you copy the emotion. If they sound confused, you make your voice sound confused. I really don't know what happened there.
You are stepping inside the skin of the native speaker. You are teaching your facial muscles, your tongue, and your breath how to physically produce the English rhythm.
When you mimic the emotion, you connect the sound to the feeling, which reinforces the picture method we talked about earlier. It creates physical muscle memory.
But we must discuss a very dangerous trap that many learners fall into when they attempt this exercise.
I am so glad you brought this up because I see this mistake all the time. It is a mistake fueled by ambition.
A learner decides they are going to get serious about English. They want to improve rapidly. So they choose content that is far too difficult for their current level.
They choose a fast-paced action movie or a complex political debate or a science documentary filled with medical vocabulary.
That ambition is wonderful, but the choice of material destroys the learning process. It destroys it completely.
The learner sits down with the fast action movie. The actors are shouting slang over the sound of explosions. The learner tries to pause and shadow the sentence.
But they missed half the words because the speed was too high. They cannot mimic the sentence. They try again. They fail again.
Within 15 minutes, they are completely overwhelmed. The ambition turns into disappointment. They feel foolish.
They tell themselves, I am just not smart enough to learn English, and they stop practicing entirely.
That is the tragedy of choosing the wrong material. That is why the sources are adamant you must use easy audio.
You must find material that you can already understand comfortably, maybe even material that feels a little bit too simple for your reading level.
Some learners might push back on that. They might think, if it is easy, I am not learning anything new. Does hard practice make you learn faster?
In physical exercise, lifting a heavier weight might build muscle faster, but language acquisition is largely psychological.
Easy practice is vastly superior because it builds the most important resource a learner has: confidence.
Confidence is fuel.
Exactly. When you listen to a simple, clear sentence, pause the video and repeat it perfectly with the right emotion, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. You feel a sense of victory.
You think, I just sounded exactly like a native speaker. I can actually do this. That positive emotion makes you want to practice again tomorrow.
It creates a positive loop. Success breeds confidence. Confidence breeds consistency. And consistency is the true secret to language learning.
Doing 10 minutes of successful, confidence-building, easy practice every single day will change your English entirely. Doing 2 hours of frustrating, exhausting, difficult practice once a week will only make you hate the language.
The goal of shadowing easy audio is to train your brain to form the short, direct sentences automatically, without translation. You are internalizing the melody of English.
We have explored a tremendous amount of ground in this deep dive. The sources have provided us with a psychological map to navigate the translation wall. Let us take a moment to summarize the practical tools for you so you can walk away with a clear action plan.
A brief review is essential. We have discussed a collection of specific techniques designed to shift the brain from translating to direct thinking.
First, we explored the inner voice, the practice of naming the physical world around you, looking at the cup, the window, the tree, and letting the English word arrive without the native language interfering.
Second, we expanded that inner voice into full self-talk, using the safe, private space of your mind to narrate your daily routines, describing your morning, stating how the floor feels cold, narrating the process of making coffee, without the fear of judgment or mistakes.
Third, we looked at the power of moving through the entire day in English, describing the sensory experience of cooking and eating, observing the weather and the people on the street. We learned to accept the initial brain fatigue as a sign of growth, and we learned to trust that the brain will naturally correct its own grammar patterns if we just keep the flow moving.
Fourth, we completely changed how we learn new vocabulary. We threw away the native language dictionary. We learned to connect English words directly to vivid mental pictures, physical actions, and strong human emotions. And we supported this by changing our phone language and writing our shopping lists in English.
Finally, we embraced the short, direct culture of English expression. We stopped trying to build complicated poetic sentences in our heads. We practiced shadowing easy, simple audio to internalize the true rhythm and melody of the language, building our confidence day by day.
These are not just exercises. They're a new way of living with the language. If a learner commits to these small daily habits, the reward is profound.
The reward is absolute freedom. When you train your brain to think directly, the wall crumbles. English is no longer a stressful puzzle you have to solve in real time. It becomes a transparent window. You look right through the language to the ideas and the people on the other side. You speak faster, your listening comprehension becomes effortless, and you finally feel like yourself when you speak English.
It is the beautiful moment when you realize that you do not just study English anymore. You live in it.
So, what does this all mean for you right now? It means the power is entirely in your hands. Tomorrow morning, or even later today, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you need to use English. You might feel that old habit pulling at you. You might catch your brain starting to translate a thought into your native language first. When that happens, just stop. Take a deep breath. Do not panic. Do not fight the wall. Just pause, look at something simple in the room, and try to form just one basic thought directly in English.
It requires patience. The translation habit took years to build, and it will take time to replace. But every single time you choose the direct English thought, the new muscle gets stronger. One day, you'll be in that coffee shop. The barista will ask you a question, and before you even realize what is happening, the English answer will fall out of your mouth perfectly without a single moment of translation.
That is the moment everything changes. As we bring our deep dive into these sources to a close, I want to leave you with a final, slightly deeper idea to think about as you go about your day.
This raises an important question, I'm sure.
We talked extensively about how English has its own unique architecture. It is direct, it is fast. It values clarity and simplicity over heavy poetic complexity. Science tells us that the language we use fundamentally shapes the way our brains organize reality. The words and structures we think in actually filter how we see the world. So my question for you is this. If you dedicate yourself to this process and you successfully train your inner voice to use this shorter, faster, more direct style of English thinking, how might that actually change your personality?
That is a fascinating psychological concept.
Right. If your internal thoughts become more direct and less complicated, will you naturally become a more direct person in your daily life? Will you start solving complex problems faster because your inner voice cuts straight to the point? Will your relationships and your interactions with the world shift because the very foundation of your internal dialogue has changed? Think about who you might become when you fully adopt the English mind.
It is a profound realization. Learning to think in a new language is not just about adopting a new set of words. It might actually be an invitation to discover a new version of yourself.
Take care of yourself.